We're back on the show. John Pollock and John Randeen with you, getting set for the UFC's debut in Ottawa. And joining us now in studio, he will be headlining that card in Ottawa, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, winner of his last 6. And we were talking with Rory earlier. I mean, this is a fight, Stephen, that when it was announced, I mean, everyone very much excited for this, a big main event for a new market like Ottawa. What was your reaction when Rory MacDonald was the option thrown your way? Because obviously, things have changed after the Johnny Hendricks win for you.
Oh, yeah. You know, I was a little disappointed after that I was getting Rory. You know, I was expected to get a title shot after that. You know, finishing somebody who was a former welterweight champion and somebody who's never been finished in the first finished at all. I don't think in MMA. So I ended up finishing him in the first round. But you know what? Rory MacDonald is the #1 guy. He's the one guy that's standing in front of me for that title shot. So you know what? I was like, let's go for it. What better fighter to fight in Canada than Rory MacDonald?
Are you ready to be maybe the villain up here in Ottawa on June the 18th?
I've never been a villain. I've never been a villain, but you know what? Mentally, I'm prepared to get the booze. You know what I mean? But you know, he's a cool dude, man. I've known him for a long time. Doing some training up at TriStar with George and just meeting those guys, and you know, fighting on the same card with Rory. So we got a good relationship. And you know, before we're going to be friends, and after the fight, after we punch each other in the face, we're going to be friends. So it's business, man. I mean, it's something that you got to kind of understand in this game. Once you make it to the top, eventually you have to fight each other.
Interesting, you talked about TriStar. We talked to Firas, and he said this fight was very, very difficult for him. He did not want this fight to go down because of the relationship he has with you and Rory. Why did this? Obviously, you know that Rory's at the top of the mountain, but it seems like there could have been other opponents that you could take that would still get you a crack at the championship.
Yeah, I think it's just because, you know, I just defeated the #2 guy, and which was Johnny Hendricks, and the #1, Rory MacDonald. So I kind of felt like I didn't want to go back. You know, I was right there at that title shot. If they're not going to give it to me, give me somebody who's ranked higher than me. And Rory was it. You know, to be honest with you, I didn't want to take it either, just because you know, the relationship I have with those guys as well. But in the business, you got to do what you got to do. And we both have the same goals, and I think he would have done the same thing. And you know, we're going to be ready for June 18th, baby.
Do you like the idea of new challenges? You look at Rory, very complete fighter.
Oh, yeah.
As a martial artist, as a fighter, are you hoping to get new knowledge every time you stepped outside of the cage? Now I know how to deal with this specific skill set, this specific style. Is that what you're hoping every time you leave the cage?
Oh, always, always. You know, I learned a lot from that last fight with Johnny Hendricks, and of course, going up to New York and training with Chris Weidman. Somebody at that weight class, having somebody like that in on your legs who is as technical and as strong, makes the 170 seem easy. But Rory is definitely the best and most well-rounded fighter that I've faced so far. And he's a scary opponent, man. He's got great striking, good wrestling, and phenomenal jiu-jitsu. So, you know what? All I can do is prepare myself the best way I can for June 18th to go out there and, you know, give it all I got.
Did you go back immediately after the Johnny Hendricks fight and watch that? Because watching that in real time, there seemed to be a distinct moment in that fight where Johnny Hendricks he just seemed like, I don't know how to adjust here. This is something that I just don't have an answer for. Did you take a similar conclusion going back and watching the tape and reflecting on it?
Definitely. And you know what? During the fight, I could kind of see it, but as soon as I went back and watched it, I could really see the part where he just kind of, he didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
He didn't know what to do with the style. He didn't know how to enter, how to get me to the cage. And there was a moment where everybody held their breath whenever he got me to the cage, ended up defending the takedown and getting out, and I could just see it in his eyes. I hit him with a side kick to the body, and right after that, I hit him with a lead round kick, and he just kind of shook his head and dropped his hands, and that's when I knew that I was going to break him. I had him.
Do you feel that's something unique to yourself amongst the welterweight class, that you have a striking set that it's very hard to prepare for because it is so unorthodox? And in the case of Johnny Hendricks, it was just didn't have an answer for and knowing what kind of style you do bring.
Yeah, you know, a karate background is a very difficult style to get used to. Not a whole lot of people see it or can find people to simulate it. You know, the switching sides, the angles, the wide stance, hands down. But you're starting to see that more and more in the UFC with, you know, Conor McGregor, Gunnar Nelson,
Scoggins.
of course, Justin Scoggins, who was, you know, trained with him for many years. So, which the game is changing, man, and it's the, you know, that distance management, and it's about being tricky nowadays, you know.
Did you expect that? Did you know that eventually when the takedown defense was there and your comfort level in the stopping, if the fight gets taken down, I'm going to get back up, that eventually this style will take over?
Oh, yeah, and I learned that right after my fight with Matt Brown. I learned a lot during that fight. It was my only loss in the UFC or my fight career, and I learned a lot from it. and I've been working on it ever since. Working my wrestling, working my jiu-jitsu constantly has given me definitely the, the confidence to go out there and just let it all on the line. Don't have to worry about getting taken down now because I can defend it now. I can get back up if I do get taken down.
You and Johnny also had the monkey wrench of just a week or so out from the fight. Suddenly this becomes a 5-round fight from a 3-round fight. I mean, is there anything you can even do at that point? You're essentially, your camp is done at this point. Is there much you can do in that kind of a situation?
Well, I thought it was very cool that it happened the way it did because my last 3 fights, I've been training for 5-minute round fights. I knew that title shot is around the corner, so why not start preparing now? Which makes the 3 5-minute rounds seem easy. I can go 3 5-minute rounds as hard as I can, and be okay. So during the Johnny Hendricks fight, I was already doing 5-minute round fights, and that's something I learned from Chris Weidman. Being up there for his camps, doing 5-minute rounds with him, watching him push himself, and just give it all he's got. You know what I mean? That's something I learned from it and from him, and took that back in the gym, and that's what I'm incorporating in my camp now.
I want to talk about confidence and pressure. We were at TriStar and Sage Northcutt was there, and we talked to him about dealing with the pressure so young in his career. And he says, I don't feel pressure whatsoever. And I think one of the reasons why is because he's been competing in karate for so long. Yeah. Do you feel pressure, considering that you've been competing under the bright lights for a long time?
Not to the point where I'm feeling it now, I'm actually starting to kind of get into the spotlight a little bit after finishing Ellenberger and Johnny Hendricks and getting ready to fight the #1 contender. And but you know what? I've got a job to do, and I don't let it get to me. A lot of guys let that hype get to them, and it affects them in the cage. So I've got one job, and that job is Rory MacDonald, June 18th. I'm going to do everything I can to prepare for it, and that's what I'm focused on.
I mean, just speaking with you here, you're an extremely nice person to talk to. Do you feel with a win over Rory MacDonald, do you kind of have to put your foot down and kind of scream that this title fight is mine and kind of exerting that pressure?
Oh, definitely, man. I mean, after being the #1 contender, which is, Rory, they have to give it to me. I know there's a lot of things up in the air right now with the welterweight division with Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz, and of course there's rumors of George St. Pierre coming back. So there are a lot of things up in the air. But if I think a good win over Rory MacDonald, they have to give me that title shot.
Well, we're looking forward to this fight a lot. It's coming up Saturday, June the 18th. The UFC will be in Ottawa, Ontario for the very first time. Catch this man in action. For John Ramdeen, I'm John Pollock, and thanks for tuning in.